Honorable Onawos is invited to move the motion.
The Right Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues, my name is Mohammed Ogoshi Onawos, represent Awe, Joma, and Kiana Federal Constituency. It's a motion the need to investigate the implementation of the cashless banking policy of Central Bank of Nigeria. The House does note that the Central Bank of Nigeria introduced a cashless banking policy with effect from June 2012, which is aimed at reducing the amount of physical cash circulating in the economy. It further notes that the policy limits the daily cash withdrawal or deposits by an individual to 500,000 naira, while that of corporate bodies is 3 million naira. Aware that the Deputy Governor Operations, Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Tunde Lemo, while briefing newsmen at the end of the special forum on financing the power sector reforms for economic development, stated that individuals will be charged 3% of the excess amount of withdrawal and 2% of the excess amount of deposits, while corporate bodies will be charged 3% of the excess amount of deposit and 5% of the excess amount of withdrawal with effect from October 2nd, 2013 at the expiration of the 3 months moratorium given by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Further aware that according to a 2010 survey by Enhancing Financial Innovation and Access, a non-profit organization that promotes financial sector development and financial inclusion in Nigeria, said roughly 65% of adult males and 77% of adult females and 80% of Nigerians' rural population do not utilize the services of banks, which makes a successful implementation of the policy very difficult, given its reliance on the use of technologies that depend on power stability. Concerned that while charges on account of withdrawal might not be necessarily queried, it is absurd and a calculated act of injustice to subject a customer to pay charges for deposit transactions despite persistent challenges on connectivity of point of sales and the inefficient automated teller machines, especially in rural areas. Concerned that while charges on account of withdrawal may not necessarily be worried that the policy is unjust, unpopular, arbitrary, and capable of demoralizing bank customers from depositing their money for fear of exorbitant charges. Disturbed that the new policy creates bankphobia in customers, especially the high-profile ones who make deposits in millions of naira daily. Amazed at a claim by Mr. Lemo, the Deputy Governor of Operations, of the high increase of electronic retail transactions from 2% before the introduction of the policy to 20% after the introduction of the policy. He regrets that the Central Bank of Nigeria is bent on implementing the policy despite apparent challenges associated with infrastructural deficit, power instability, prevalence of e-fraud, poor consumer protection, high illiteracy rate, inadequate public sensitization and real data that drive the process. Unreliable communication networks, lack of legislative framework, anticipated rise in money laundering and job losses, to mention but a few. Further regrets that despite manifest injustice inherent in imposing charges on deposits and increasing complaints as a result of financial hardship imposed on customers, the Central Bank of Nigeria has refused to provide any solution that will modify the policy to meet the current realities. Has thus resolved to mandate the committees on banking and currency, finance and drug, narcotics and financial crimes to investigate the implementation of the cashless policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria and report back to the House.
That's true. We have on this floor taken this specific issue, and we did state clearly that we are in support of this cashless motion or cashless arrangement. And I think that since my colleague wanted a situation where we have to reverse ourselves, I believe that guided by the provision of the House rule that I have just read, the first step that will happen here is a motion that will be for us to resent the position that we have taken, so that we cannot go into the substantive matter, because I am very, very clear that this matter has been taken on this floor and we all endorse the cashless motion. So I believe that, if there's going to be any motion, first we need to resent that particular decision that we have made, then we can now go into the discussion of the specific issue.
Honorable Momo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to say that I'm perfectly in agreement with the last speaker, and that was the same issue I really want to raise, in the sense that this matter has been discussed in this parliament and it was defeated, and we are still in the same session. It's not as if we are across to a new session, and to that very extent I don't see us continue with it now unless there is a formal motion to rescind our earlier decision. It is only then that it becomes possible. We are not quarreling with the motion itself. The motion is perfectly in order, but if there's any need to reconsider it, we have to comply with the rules.
I'm worried by two paragraphs of the motion which said the House regrets that the Central Bank is bent on implementing. The House cannot be regretting what it has endorsed. So if this motion has to be taken, maybe it should call on the House to review the implementation so far, rather than giving the impression that we never endorsed the cashless policy ab initio.
To guide the House is because you are the custodian of our daily proceedings, and you also listed this motion, and I thought you would have guided us when you said, as far as you are concerned, you relied simply on the comments of the Chairman Rules and Business. So what's your advice to the House?
That every motion has to be forwarded to Mr. Speaker. And once Mr. Speaker endorses that motion to the Rules and Business Committee, it is the duty of the Rules and Business Committee to refer the motion to the...
No, I am not faulting you. I'm not faulting the procedure. I'm saying, what is your guidance to us as it is now?
But my guidance is that this subject matter has been decided upon by the House, giving a note to the Central Bank to implement the cashless policy. If the House for any reason decides that that decision was taken in error, we come by way of substantive motion to set aside the earlier decision and then consider the current one. Or this motion can be redone in such a way that the House should review so far the implementation of the cashless policy to see how successful it has been or what difficulties are there, and then come back with other things. But for us to regret that the Central Bank is implementing it is contrary to a decision of this House that's already been taken.
The issue here is how to interpret the phrase or the words subject matter. I think the interpretation being given by Honorable Leo and the chairman business is to spread the phrase subject matter to cover everything that has to do with cashless policy. And that is not the intention of our rules. I have with me here the first motion being referred to, which dates far back to June, before the nationwide implementation. And the title of that motion, Mr. Speaker, is the need for Central Bank of Nigeria to implement the cashless policy in phases. That motion was not complaining about the implementation, or rather was not complaining about the operation after implementation. The motion was talking about need to implement it in phases.
Do you have the resolution of the House, the resolution of the House on that motion? What of the resolution?
There was a motion on the same subject matter, and that is what is important. And I have that motion here, and what I'm saying is that it was not the same subject matter. What my honorable colleague is moving here is the implementation. It is now being implemented, but there are issues with the implementation that should be investigated. That is different from asking that prior to implementation, let us do this thing in phases. So totally two different subject matters. We cannot spread or open up the issue of subject matter and give it such a wide interpretation to cover. So if anybody brings something tomorrow on cashless policy, we'll say, oh, we've treated the issue of cashless policy. That is not the intention of our House rules. And I think the mover should be allowed to carry on with this.
The Right Honorable Speaker, sir. My name is Mohammed Ogoshono, represent Awe, Doma, Kiana Federal Constituency. I have listened to the arguments of the Chairman Rules of Business and other colleagues. This motion came as a result of this note the chairman is talking about and what is currently being done. Today, I want to call the attention of this House to the fact that on the day this motion was resolved, on the day that this motion was discussed, it was resolved that the House further urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to remove the charges and or limit on daily cumulative withdrawals and deposits to encourage small businesses and Nigerians at large, as has been done for the ministries, departments and agencies. If this was resolved by this House and up till now the banks are still charging for depositing, there is nowhere in the world that you are being charged for depositing. There is nowhere in the world that if you want to encourage people to bring their monies to the bank, that you charge them for doing this. But if the chairman has business and rules says that is, I would wish to step down my motion and reframe it to represent it on the floor of the House in the next legislative day.
Well, my dear colleagues, Honorable Mohammed Onawos had requested that this matter be stepped down today and he revisits the motion and it will be taken